So, Dune Part 2 is officially out in theaters, and I hope you've had time to see it because it is time to talk about it. Hey Book Dragons, welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad you're here with me. It is time to talk about Dune. No, not the book, the movie. Specifically, Dune Part 2. I recently saw the movie last Wednesday and I am going to talk all about it. Now, I do want to let you know I am starting off spoiler free and then I'm going to move into spoilers, and that will be clearly marked in the timestamps for the video. So if you don't want to be spoiled for anything, the spoiler section comes second. You can skip that if you want to. I mean, I'd love for you to watch the whole video, but if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want spoilers, just forewarning you on that, okay? So we're going to go ahead and get right to talking about the movie, and I'll just tell you right from the start, guys, I was really impressed. I was impressed with Part 1 when it was in theaters. When I saw it for the first time, I was blown away. Like, I already knew Denis Villeneuve was a master when it came to creating an epic masterpiece of a movie because I had seen his work on Blade Runner 2049, so I already knew kind of what I was in for, but I was not quite prepared for just how good Dune Part 1 was. I come into this as a huge fan of the book. I've read the book twice. I've seen the original David Lynch movie probably 10 or 15 times at least. I've seen the sci-fi miniseries of both Dune and Children of Dune twice. So I'm very familiar with those as well. And they did a really good job with the subject matter. But the cinematography and costuming was a little bit weird, but they were pretty faithful to the book. But boy, I tell you guys, as far as an epic theater production, Dune Part 1 really delivered. And I have to say, Dune Part 2 delivered just as much, if not better, than Part 1. The movie is visually stunning. I mean, that is definitely something that you can expect from Denis Villeneuve, is a visually stunning movie. I was just blown away by the set pieces and the lighting, the set design, the battle sequences. It was all just a feast for the eyes. It was so well done and so immersive. I was just glued to my seat the entire time, and it was just such a breathtaking film. One thing that this movie continued that the first movie did really well was the tribal language for the Fremen. I was really impressed with that. I thought it added a lot of depth and realism to this story, because you don't get anything like that in the books, but because the Fremen are a nomadic desert people, it would make sense for them to have their own language that they speak. And so a lot of the really epic declarations and things that you see in the book are on the screen, but they're in subtitles because you're hearing the language of the Fremen in the background. And so I thought that was just really cool. It added just an extra little something to the movie that you don't get in the book. As I already mentioned, the action sequences were fantastic. I was just blown away by how immersive they felt. And there are some really big epic battles in this movie and other action sequences as well, like scenes involving the worms of Arrakis. Absolutely took my breath away. It was fantastic. There was really solid acting in the movie as well. We had most of our returning cast from the previous movie. There were a couple that were missing, but with the exception of those few, the entire cast returned. And we also have some new faces, like Fade Rotha, played by Austin Butler, Emperor Corino, played by Christopher Walken. And I have to say, the casting choices for those two roles in particular, I wasn't quite sure about, because something about Christopher Walken has always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I never really enjoyed his acting, but he did a really good job in this movie, I thought, for what little time that he got on the screen. And Austin Butler as Feyd-Rautha was just mind-bogglingly good. I was really worried about that one, but he nailed that so hard. I was just terrified of him, the way he portrayed that character. And Feyd-Rautha is a brutal, sadistic character, and Austin Butler really brought that to life on the screen. And there were some really cool stylistic choices for certain scenes in the movie. There's a gladiator sequence on Giedi Prime, for instance, that does take place in the book, and when you're in the gladiator arena, everything is in black and white. And what I thought was really cool was the way they faded from color to black and white as the attendees of the match started making their way into the stadium. You all of a sudden fade from color to black and white, and it just felt seamless and appropriate, and it just gave a whole new weight to that scene, and I thought that was fantastically done. Another stylistic choice I really liked, in the final duel between Feyd and Paul Atreides, there was no music at all. It was just blade upon blade, heavy breathing from the fighters. They're completely engaged in each other, and there is utter silence. And it was so evocative, guys. Like, I can't tell you how well that worked for that scene. I was awestruck by it. So I loved some of those stylistic choices. And if you're wondering if we're going to get an adaptation of Dune Messiah, I can pretty confidently say yes. The end of the movie does set it up perfectly for Dune Messiah. And that's all I'm going to say here, because if you haven't read Dune Messiah, it wouldn't mean anything to you. But just so you know, if you're planning on reading ahead and reading Dune Messiah, it is going to be adapted as well. Denis Villeneuve has officially stated that the script for that movie is in the embryo stage. So it's going to be a while still, but we are going to get it. And I'm so excited. And I think that's really important because it does complete Paul Atreides' arc. And you just can't have a movie treatment like this without it, I don't personally think. That's all I'm gonna say for the spoiler-free section of this video. I just want to say, guys, if you have not seen it yet, please go see this movie. You need to see part 1 first, of course. And I think most people who are watching this have probably seen part 1. But if you haven't, go watch it and then go see part 2. It is, I think, going to be the best movie of 2024 for me personally. I'm just saying that right now. Unless something changes, there's not going to be anything that's going to top this movie for me. I know it's early in the year, but that's how I feel. So, that's the end of the spoiler-free section. We're going to move on to spoilers. So you've been warned. If you need to stop and avoid those spoilers, you can do so now. Are you still here? Okay, all right. So, spoilers. So, first thing, I just want to say this is a small little Easter egg. We finally saw Gurney playing his balisette and singing. Yeah, it was on the troop ship, but that's fine. You know, we never did get the dinner scene with his extended balisette concert, but can't have everything right. And Denis Villeneuve has said he doesn't believe in director's cuts, so I don't think we're ever going to get that. But I know they filmed it, so I guess maybe you never know. I mean, maybe they didn't, but somebody had said that they did film it, so I would like to see it. But I thought that was really, really cool. And as far as Dune Messiah goes, as I mentioned earlier, there is going to be an adaptation of Dune Messiah. And I don't see why it wouldn't happen, because I'm sure the studios just want to milk this for everything they can, because This movie is going to put them on the map this year. So I'm so excited for Dune Messiah, and I'm really curious how they're going to do it. I'm thinking that maybe Denny is going to wait a few more years between these movies so that he can really work on it hard and make sure it's good and it's what the fans want, but also because Paul really needs to be older at that point, right? I mean, there is a 10-year time gap between Dune and Dune Messiah. You know, the Holy War has already happened. We only get a brief mention of the Holy War at the end of this movie, which is one of the things that kind of tells us we're going to get Dune Messiah, other than the fact that he already confirmed he's working on it. But I'm just super excited for how that plays out. I loved Dune Messiah just as much as Dune. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but I was just blown away by how good Dune Messiah was. It's weirder than Dune in a lot of ways, but I was there for it. I was eating it up, and there's so much political intrigue, and just it's such a great story. So now let's go ahead and talk about some of the changes and what I thought about it, because there were a lot of changes. For one thing, there is no time skip in the movie. So in the book, there's about 2 or 3 years at least between part 1 of the book and part 2 of the book. So by the time we see Paul and Chani, they're older and Chani's been pregnant and everything like that. The first Leto II has arrived on the scene by the end of the book and things like that. So there was no time skip in this movie. So they didn't have Chani pregnant at all. The first Leto II did not exist at all in the movie. So that's a big change. But I don't think that change breaks the movie at all. I can see why they left it out. Leto II was in the book for such a short period of time because he was killed. So there's no reason to really have him in the movie. And Denis Villeneuve did not want to fool with aging up the characters at all to make that time gap. So it just kind of makes sense. We really pick up from where Dune Part 1 left off. One thing I was kind of bummed about was there's no Thufir. He's not there. I don't know why. Because he still played a fairly significant role in the book, especially promoting the whole conspiracy theory about Jessica working with the Harkonnens to kill Duke Leto and things like that. So, you know, there was that whole conspiracy theory. And I think maybe that's why he left Thufir out, is because he didn't want to deal with that whole theory. It would have taken up more time and made the story that he was telling Phil a little bit disjointed. And I get that. So maybe that's why we didn't see Thufir, but I really liked him, and I really liked the actor who portrayed him, so I was kind of bummed about that. So another big change in the movie was that Alya was still unborn. In the book, of course, we get that 2 to 3 year time gap, so Alya has already been born. She's 2 to 3 years old, and she's got all the wisdom and knowledge of the previous Bene Gesserit sisters that have gone on before her. So she's got a fully fledged human mind in a child's body. It is kind of weird. I kind of get why he didn't want to go for it. Like David Lynch went for it in the first movie, and I mean, he pulled it off. I think it can be pulled off, but Denny didn't want to fool with that, and that's okay. It still came off really weird because you've got Jessica talking to her unborn child in the womb, and her child is asking her questions and stuff like that, and telling her things to tell to Paul. And then once Paul drinks the water of life, of course, he can communicate with Alya, and he sees visions of her in the future when she's fully grown. And, you know, so we know that she's definitely around in the movie, but it was just kind of an odd choice, I thought, to leave Alya out of it. And it did change some other things, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. I really like that they still did the Harkonnen lineage for Paul through Jessica. He still finds out that Jessica is the daughter of Baron Harkonnen, so he's the grandson, and of course Alya is the granddaughter. But of course in the book, Alya is the one that kills Baron Harkonnen and calls him grandfather and everything like that. In this movie, of course, Paul does it. Paul greets him as grandfather and kills him shortly afterwards. So it was definitely done differently, and really had to be done differently because Alya was not born. So one choice did eventually lead to other choices that he had to make, and I understand why he did it. I kind of wish he'd taken the risk and done it the way it is in the book, but I am okay with the way he did it. I'm not upset about it at all. It was just a stylistic and creative choice that he decided to make, and at the end of the day, it's an adaptation. Maybe he just thought that that wouldn't work for general audiences for some reason. So most people that are watching these movies are fans of the book, so, he probably would have been okay, but I understand why he might have done it. I was really glad that they put Margot Fenring in the movie. I was kind of surprised that they didn't include Count Fenring as well, but that is what it is. It's not a huge change. She still has the sexual relationship with Fade to try and conceive a son because she finds out that he's the Bene Gesserit's other option for continuing the bloodline and forging alliances, all those plans within plans behind the scenes, which, by the way, they said plans within plans too. I was like, yes, but yeah, so that was very interesting, the way that was done without Count Fenring in the picture, and I get it, that might have made the story just longer to explain the whole, who is this Count Fenring and why is his wife having an affair with Fade. I get that. I totally understand why he left it out, and I think it still worked. One thing that I found quite interesting, Lady Fenring did the Gom Jabbar test on Fade. Now that wasn't in the book, but it does make sense because of the plans that the Sisterhood has for Fade. Because if they want to kill Paul and have Fade be the Kwisatz Haderach, it would make sense that they would need to test him to make sure he has the ability to endure the strain of that test, and that both mentally and emotionally and physically, and it made sense why they did it. Even though it wasn't in the book, I think it fit with the storyline because of what they were trying to do. And then finally, I do want to talk about some changes with Chani. I kind of like the way they went with it. At the end of the book, they still have Paul being betrothed to Princess Irulan to secure the throne. And, of course, in the book, she knows about this plan and everything like that. In the movie, of course, they did not have her know about the plan. She was just as shocked as pretty much everyone else that Paul would offer to take Irulan to wife. And she was quite angry about it and frustrated. And I think they made some positive changes to Chani's arc overall. She is much more of a skeptic in this movie than she is in the book. Stilgar, of course, being from the southern Fremen in the movie, is more fanatical about the myth about the Lisan al-Gaib that the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood has spread. Chani's more of a skeptic, and she's very angry about the direction that Paul's arc takes and about her place in it. He still tells her that, I will love you as long as I breathe, and yet he goes and forges this alliance with House Corrino by marrying Princess Irulan, and so she's angry about that and everything. So she's definitely more of a skeptic, and she doesn't believe in Paul the way she does in the book. And I think that really kind of sets up what we're going to see in Dune Messiah as well, because he does say that he's seen in his futures that Chani does come around. So I think she is going to come around, but I think it made sense for her in this movie to be more angry, to be more frustrated, and to be more skeptical. She's even kind of skeptical in the book, so it makes for some interesting romantic tension there, and kind of a stronger love triangle, if you will, that may pop up in the third movie. But one thing that I was kind of wondering if they were going to do was have that final line from the book. And I'm just going to read it real quick if that's okay, because This kind of shows the difference between Chani in the book and in the movie. And Jessica is telling her that Irulan will have no more of me than my name, no child of mine, nor touch, nor softness of glance, nor instant of desire. So you say now, Chani said. She glanced across the room at the tall princess. Do you know so little of my son? Jessica whispered. See that princess standing there so haughty and confident. They say she has pretensions of literary nature. Let us hope she finds solace in such things. She'll have little else. A bitter laugh escaped Jessica. Think on it, Chani. That princess will have the name, yet she'll live as less than a concubine, never to know a moment of tenderness from the man to whom she's bound. While we, Chani, we who carry the name of concubine, history will call us wives. So, I mean, that was not in the movie at all, and I was wondering if they were going to do that, if Jessica was going to have that moment with Chani to encourage her and say, hold on a minute, don't be upset about this. You don't realize how little of himself Paul is going to give her. But that didn't happen. That was probably another creative choice on Denny's part, because he's like, I want to make sure that we give a good setup for Dune Messiah in this movie. I am curious how that's going to work, though, because if Chani is so jaded at the end of this movie, I'm really curious how she's going to come around in the next story. So I guess that remains to be seen. But I have to say, overall, I was so impressed with this movie. For an adaptation of the book, it is the best that I have seen, and it's probably the best adaptation of Dune that we are going to get. Dune is a hard book to adapt, guys. It really is. It's a hard book to adapt. So I think Denis Villeneuve did a smashing job, and I can't wait to see this movie again and again. And I just want to have a marathon and watch parts 1 and 2 together at least twice and just have that experience. I can't wait. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of the movie? If you've seen it, are you as positive on it as I am? I would love to know. And are you a fan of the book as well? And if so, what did you think of the changes based on your reading of the book? I would love to know all of your thoughts on it, and I hope you'll share those with me in the comments. Was I too lenient on the movie? Was I not lenient enough? I don't know. Just let me know. I would love to talk with you. And until next time, guys, make sure you read more books and watch some adaptations that you like as well. I'll talk with you soon.